On the night of the Isra wal Miraj, the Prophet Muhammad ascended through the seven heavens accompanied by Jibreel, the most powerful angel in all of creation, the bearer of divine revelation, the angel of 600 wings whose true form fills the entire space between the horizons. And then they reached a boundary, and Jibreel stopped. He told the Prophet in words recorded across authentic Hadith collections, that if he were to go even a finger's breadth further beyond that point, he would be consumed by what lay beyond. The Prophet crossed that boundary alone. What he received on the other side was not delivered through any angel. It was given directly, and it is something every Muslim performs 5 times every single day. This is the story of the Sidrat al-Muntaha. What it is, what happened there, what Jibreel said, and what the scholars of Islam have understood about what that moment means. The Isra wal Miraj, the Night Journey and the Ascension, stands as one of the most theologically significant events in all of Islam, second only to the revelation of the Quran itself in its implications for Islamic belief and practice. The Isra refers to the horizontal journey, from Al-Masjid al-Haram in Mecca to Al-Masjid al-Aqsa in Jerusalem, referenced directly in the opening verse of Surah al-Isra, the 17th chapter of the Quran. The Miraj refers to the vertical ascension, upward through the 7 heavens and beyond, into territory no created being had ever entered before. The event took place during one of the most difficult periods in the Prophet's life, the period known as the Year of Grief, in which he lost both his beloved wife Khadijah, and his uncle and protector Abu Talib within a short span of time. The loss of Khadijah, removed the person who had been his closest companion and support from the very beginning of the prophetic mission. The loss of Abu Talib removed the protection that had shielded him physically from the hostility of Quraysh. In the immediate aftermath of those losses, the Prophet had also traveled to Taif seeking support, only to be driven out with stones, his feet bleeding, turned away by the people he had hoped would receive the message. It was into this moment of profound difficulty that Allah sent the Night Journey, a divine consolation, a spiritual elevation, and a demonstration of a nearness to Allah that no human being before or after has been granted in this life. To understand the full weight of what happened at the Sidrat al-Muntaha, you need to understand who Jibreel, actually is not the simplified version, but what the authentic Hadith literature actually describes. Jibreel is identified in the Quran and Hadith literature as al-Amin, the trustworthy spirit, and as the angel of revelation, the primary intermediary between Allah and his prophets throughout all of human history. It was Jibreel who descended to the cave of Hira and pressed the Prophet commanding him to read, delivering the first words of the Quran. It was Jibreel who brought revelation to the Prophet throughout the 23 years of the prophetic mission. It was Jibreel who delivered revelation to Ibrahim, Musa, Isa, and the prophets before them. The physical description of Jibreel in his true form, as recorded in authentic Hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, describes a being whose scale is completely beyond normal human comprehension. The Prophet saw Jibreel in his true angelic form twice, once early in the prophetic mission and once during the Miraj itself. In the narration referenced in Surah an-Najm, Jibreel appeared at the horizon, filling the entire space between the horizons with 600 wings, each wing so vast it covered the horizon entirely. Some narrations describe pearls, diamonds, and rubies falling from his wings. The sight was so overwhelming, so far beyond what human perception is built to process, that the Prophet remained completely still, not moving forward or backward, simply absorbing what he was seeing. The Quran itself, in Surah an-Najm, describes Jibreel as Shadid al-Quwa, the one of mighty power. In Hadith literature, Jibreel is described as the angel who destroyed the cities of the people of Lut with a single edge of one wing, lifting those cities from the earth and hurling them. He is the angel who carried divine revelation across the cosmos for the entirety of human prophetic history. He is, in the Islamic theological tradition, among the greatest created beings in existence, and his power is not symbolic or metaphorical but literal and vast beyond ordinary understanding. Yet even Jibreel has a boundary. That boundary has a name, the Sidrat al-Muntaha. The Sidrat al-Muntaha, the lote tree of the utmost boundary, or the lote tree at the farthest limit, is described in Surah an-Najm and elaborated upon in authentic Hadith. most completely in Sahih Muslim. It marks the absolute limit of the created universe as it is accessible to the angels, the furthest point any created being can reach. The Prophet letter FDFA described it in authentic Hadith in Sahih Muslim. Its fruits were like the large pitchers of Hajar, its leaves were as large as the ears of elephants, and its scale was so enormous that angels circumambulate it continuously. During the night of the Miraj, when the Prophet letter FDFA ascended to it, the tree was covered by what the Hadith describes as overwhelming colors, hues, and luminosity, a manifestation of the divine presence that transformed and veiled its appearance entirely, so that it could not be described in ordinary terms. 4 rivers gushed forth at its base, 2 hidden rivers and 2 visible ones. The narrations preserve the image of something utterly beyond the scale of anything in human experience, a cosmic marker placed at the edge of what creation, in its totality, can contain. Throughout the entire ascension from the earth to the Sidrat al-Muntaha, Jibreel had been the Prophet's companion and guide. At the first heaven, Jibreel announced the Prophet's arrival and opened the gates. At the second heaven, the Prophet met Yahya as and Isa as. At the third, Yusuf as, described in the Hadith as having been given half of all beauty. At the fourth, Idris as. At the fifth, Harun as. At the sixth, Musa as, who wept when the Prophet passed, saying that more of the Prophet's Ummah would enter Jannah than of his own. At the seventh heaven, Ibrahim as, leaning against al-Bayt al-Mamar, the heavenly house that 70,000 angels enter every day and never return to, because there are always 70,000 more. At every station, the relationship was clear. Jibreel leading, the Prophet letter FDFA following, Jibreel opening the path forward. And then they reached the Sidrat al-Muntaha, and the relationship changed absolutely and permanently. Jibreel, the angel of 600 wings, the destroyer of entire cities, the bearer of revelation across all of human history, the one described by Allah himself as possessing mighty power, stopped. He told the Prophet letter FDFA, in the meaning preserved across narration chains, that he could not go beyond this point. If he were to proceed even a finger's breadth further, the divine light that lay beyond would consume him entirely. This was not reluctance. This was not a choice. This was the absolute boundary of what Jibreel, with all his power, all his magnitude, all his nearness to Allah relative to every other created being, was capable of enduring. The architecture of creation itself had a limit, and Jibreel had reached it, and the Prophet letter FDFA crossed it alone. The scholars of Aqidah, Islamic creed, have reflected extensively on what this moment reveals, and their conclusions are multi-layered and profound. The first conclusion is about the unique and unrepeatable status of the Prophet Muhammad letter FDFA in terms of nearness to Allah. No angel, not Jibreel, not Mikael, not Israfil, has ever been granted the proximity to Allah that the Prophet letter FDFA was granted on that night. The scholars are careful to clarify that this nearness is not about permanent cosmic rank in the way some might understand it, but about the unique intimacy of direct communication with the divine that was granted specifically to the seal of the prophets in that specific moment, and for that specific purpose. It was a nearness that even the greatest of the angels, by the design of their own created nature, could not endure, and the Prophet letter FDFA was granted it. The second conclusion concerns the 5 daily prayers. The 5 prayers were not delivered through Jibreel as an intermediary. They were given directly by Allah to the Prophet letter FDFA in the space beyond the Sidrat al-Muntaha, in the territory that Jibreel himself could not enter. This is why the scholars have always understood the prayers as occupying a unique status among the pillars of Islam. Every other foundational obligation was revealed through Jibreel, through the normal channel of angelic intermediary. The prayers alone were received in direct divine communication, without any intermediary at all. The Hadith records that the original obligation was 50 prayers per day, and that on the Prophet's descent, Musa, who had his own experience with a demanding nation, advised the Prophet letter FDFA to return and ask for a reduction, which he did repeatedly, until the final obligation was set at 5 prayers with the reward of 50. That exchange itself happened in the territory beyond Jibreel's reach. The third conclusion is a theological principle of sweeping importance. That creation, however vast and however powerful, has absolute limits, and those limits are real, imposed by the divine will, and non-negotiable even for the greatest of created beings. Jibreel is bounded. The 7 heavens are bounded. The Sidrat al-Muntaha itself is the marker of that boundary, the point where the knowable ends and the inaccessible begins, where the decrees from above are delivered, and where the deeds of creation ascend. Everything that exists within creation, including its most powerful inhabitants, exists within a container whose walls are set by Allah alone, and which no created being can exceed by their own capacity. The fourth reflection is about what Jibreel's words at that boundary actually communicate to us about the nature of divine light. When Jibreel says that proceeding further would destroy him, that the divine light would consume him, this is not a description of punishment. It is a description of the nature of created beings in proximity to the uncreated. Even the greatest angel, in all his luminous power, is still a created thing, bounded, contingent, finite in the way that all created things are finite regardless of how vast they appear relative to human scale. What lies beyond the Sidrat al-Muntaha is of a different order entirely, and the boundary is not arbitrary. It is the natural edge of what creation, even in its highest and most powerful forms, can withstand. The narrations of the Miraj have been preserved in the most rigorously authenticated Hadith collections in Islamic scholarship, primarily Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, as well as the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, and have been the subject of continuous scholarly reflection from the companions of the Prophet FDFA through every generation of Islamic scholarship to the present. The theological implications of what happened at the Sidrat al-Muntaha have been explored by scholars as different in their approaches as Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim, and as the great mystical poet Rumi, who wrote of that boundary as the point where even love's greatest messenger had to stop, and only the beloved could proceed. Every time a Muslim stands for Salah, 5 times a day, facing the Qibla, saying Allahu Akbar, they are performing the one act of worship that was given without any angel in between, the gift that was received in the place Jibreel could not follow. If you want to go deeper into the events of the Isra wal Miraj, the Prophet FDFA met at each heaven, what was said, and what the scholars have drawn from each encounter. That is the next video on this channel, and it continues directly from where this one ends.